Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to There's No Business Like. I'm Katie Trasko-Miller with Michigan Maven Creative Associates, and I am here today with Danielle.
Oh, hi, it's Danielle Van Hook from the Alden in McLean, Virginia.
And Brian.
Hi, everyone. Brian Zelmer from Bardavon Presents, and I'm in Kingston, New York today.
All right. And Josh and Kevin are too busy to join us for this recording today because Josh is laying on a beach and Kevin is preparing to run up a mountain. So while we miss them, we feel like those are pretty good excuses for
different lives. Different lives.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, those are very different things, but both valid. We'll accept those excuses.
Well, Josh also did just like paint a giant mural. So
that's true. He also did just paint a giant mural. So if you have not seen that on Josh Benson's social media, you should check it out. So today I have a question for you all. How do you feel about puppets?
How much time do we have?
How do we feel about puppets? You want to take the first plunge at this, Brian?
Well, if we're talking about puppets in general, I have mixed feelings. But if we're talking about Muppets, then I've got very strong, heartfelt feelings because I grew up not only with the Muppets and Sesame Street, but so many of those characters guided my early life and were there for me because I'm Gen X, so my parents were never home, but the Muppets and Sesame Street were always there for me.
Oh, I love that. Danielle, how about you?
I feel generally fine about puppets, but if a puppet wrongs me, I will never be okay with that puppet again. Like, I think puppets are a great storytelling device. I think they can take us to a lot of places. I think they can fill out a lot of a world that is like non-human in a super cool way. I like it when puppets and costuming are like kind of intertwined, like the Lion King and like different takes on that. I mean, like that's super cool. And like that skill set and like the artistry of making puppets and like is incredible. So I feel great about all of that. But like when puppets say bad things,
that's just kind of weird. Yeah.
Like are specifically like very like racist or any-istist, like not in no thank you, puppets.
What are you watching, Danielle?
There was like a guy who did like racism puppets in the like early or late aughts.
We run in different circles.
And it was I remember watching it with a group of people and like this is like going on and I was like not a child, but like in like later years of high school. And I just was like, wait, like looking around, like, what? People are laughing because they think it's funny. And I was like, but this is bad. Like, this is bad puppet. And like having like a very like visceral reaction to like, the emotion that can be conveyed by a puppet, let's just say. But like, so I'm chill with puppets unless you wrong me. Then it's over.
Okay. I would say I have a similar feeling to both Brian and Danielle. Love the Muppets, love Sesame Street. Same Brian, grew up with both those shows, so have warm spot in my heart for both. And Danielle, I agree. The artistry and the world building that can happen with puppets and costuming, those sorts of elements, I love. I would say I was not a huge fan of puppets when I was younger. I think I saw like one too many bad or scary puppet shows as a child.
I'm pretty sure that was the only kind of puppet show that existed when we were like I remember seeing a lot of puppet shows and I remember being like
So, but I think I've grown to appreciate the art of puppetry a lot more. And I would say the last 10 years, I think as the industry has grown and changed a lot, and we're seeing puppets used in a lot of different in innovative ways on stage. I've grown to just really appreciate it a lot more. And so that is why I was so excited to welcome our guest this week, Joshua Holden, New York City-based puppeteer, to the show. We had a thoroughly delightful conversation about his career as a puppeteer, where that has taken him throughout his life, as well as some of the business aspects of the industry, including showcasing. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Joshua Holden.
Hello there. My name is Joshua Holden. I am a Brooklyn-based puppeteer, and this is my podcast debut. I've never been on a podcast before.
What, Joshua?
Yes.
You've never been on a podcast before? That
No.
is hard to believe. Well, I am so honored that No Business Like is your very first podcast. That's really wild to me, but we're so happy to have you. Thank you for making the time to be on the show.
Of course.
Well, it's a joy to have you here. So first of all, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you do, how you got into live performing arts, your artist origin story, and where you are today.
Cool. So I wear many hats. So I'll just run down the things that I do. I am a puppeteer. I perform. I am a puppet wrangler. I'm a puppet builder. I am a puppet director. And it's very rare that I'm on stage without a puppet on my hand these days, but I am an actor first and foremost. I came to puppetry through theater. So I was a theater kid starting at age 7. I started getting into acting classes and was very serious about being an actor growing up. And I ended up going to Walnut Hill School for the Arts, which is a performing arts boarding school in Massachusetts, which is like Hogwarts for the arts. And it was life-changing for me. So I went there, and then I went to the Chicago College of Performing Arts, part of Roosevelt University, with a narrow vision of being the next Dick Van Dyke on Broadway. I was like, there's no stopping me. I'm going to be the next song and dance man on Broadway. That's it. That's no one. Here we go. Let's do it.
I mean, if you're going to model yourself after someone, Dick Van Dyke's a pretty good guy to model yourself after.
Oh yeah. And I was like studying the moves. I was like, this guy, this is it. There's a void in the market and I am it. It's the new Dick Van Dyke. Here we go.
Love it.
And then it wasn't until after college that I had an audition for the Chicago Children's Theater. They were doing a new show called The Selfish Giant with Blair Thomas, who is an incredible puppeteer in Chicago. And they asked me to audition, and I did that. And it was a very strange audition that I left and was like, what was that? Like, I have no idea what I'm doing in that space. And I booked this job, and he taught me everything I needed to know about bringing inanimate objects to life. And I just started finding this connection with everything I had known in theater and dance and singing. The specificity that goes into that, the storytelling that goes into that, was all of a sudden I thought, oh, it's all that, but through a new lens. And so for many years, I was an actor who did puppetry. And then one day I was like, I'm a puppeteer. And so I started booking these jobs, and I was on the national tour of Avenue Q. That was like my first big professional puppetry job. And then I accidentally wrote this 10-minute sketch for a puppet slam. And that piece grew into a 50-minute show over the course of a year that turned into the show called The Joshua Show that I traveled with for 10 years around the country. And it's just, things just kept snowballing. And then I ended up finding myself at the Jim Henson Company starting as an intern, picking out bugs from like Cookie Monster picking out bugs from Cookie Monster cookies. And I was like, what is my life? This is horrible. And this is incredible at the same time. So I moved from being a very overqualified intern into being a puppet wrangler on Sesame Street.
Wow.
And I've worked for Sesame Street for about 5 years, and I got an Emmy nomination for my work as a puppet wrangler, which was so cool.
I did not know that they had Emmys for puppet wrangling.
Me neither, but they do. They do. It was under costume design and styling, so it was for really the whole team that worked together to bring
so cool.
the Sesame Street puppets to life on the artistic side. And so after that, I felt really happy with that chapter, and I left the Jim Henson Company I've been gone from the Jim Henson Company for a little while. I'll happily go back when I have time, but I'm focusing on other things these days. I've worked on Broadway as a puppet director for Water for Elephants, which is currently on tour, which is a whole wild chapter in my life. And now I'm returning to making my own work. So it's been amazing to start working for other people as a puppeteer, discovering my own voice, and kind of just blindly going through booking this show and traveling for like 10 years with this show that very organically happened in like a whole business that I knew nothing about, that just kept being like, how much do I charge for a show? Sure, I'll come out to Illinois. How do I do that? And I have lots of tips on how to do that. But it's amazing to have done that. And then I took a break from that. It was hard to stop doing the Joshua show after 10 years. It was like, okay, I'm ready to put this piece to rest for a little bit.
Sure.
And exploring working on TV and film and working in the Broadway market it's so different than anything I've ever done, but is really informing what I'm currently doing now, which is returning to writing my own full-length show in a much more holistic way, and a way of being like, okay, this is how it goes. This is how we do this. So that's where I currently find myself, and it's exciting and nerve-wracking, and I know the answers and I don't know anything at the same time.
Well, we're definitely going to talk about the new work. You have a couple of projects in the works, and we're definitely going to talk about those today. But I want to go back to sort of the beginning of how you became a puppeteer and learning that vocabulary and learning the ins and outs of the industry. I think puppetry is a part of our industry that is woven through so much. Obviously, Sesame Street, The Muppets is a lot of people's first introduction to puppets and in any way, shape, or form. But we are seeing them more on Broadway. We're seeing them in all sorts of different spaces. So when you made that transition and you sort of felt like, oh, I'm a puppeteer now versus an actor, what was that transition like? And what was the vocabulary that you had to learn, whether that be movement or emotional vocabulary, that really helped you with that transition and brought you into being a puppeteer versus an actor that does puppetry?
That's a great question. So the moment in which I really found myself rooted firmly on the ground as a puppeteer was a show that I did called Peter Pan 360. And it was this large tent show that was traveling around the United States that came from Kensington Gardens. And it was a 1,300 seat circus tent with a 360 degrees CGI movie screen that went with the show. Yeah, it was amazing. And I was hired as the puppeteer on that. And previous to that, I was on Avenue Q, but even Avenue Q, I was learning hand and mouth style, hand and rod style. And so there was still like an imposter syndrome that I was feeling. But with that production, I was the lead puppeteer in the show. There's only one puppeteer. And I animated Nana the dog, a bird, and a crocodile. But the dog, when I picked that up in the rehearsal room and just went through everything that I had known about how to bring a puppet to life, just trusting the mentors that I had and the experience that I had, it took everybody's breath away. This show had been running for a long time. And the director was like, we haven't seen the dog like this. It's been much more cartoony, and you're bringing that to life in a way. And I was like, well, that's all I know how to do. Like, that's what I do. That's all I think that's what I know what we should be doing. And it was that moment that I was like, oh, Joshua, you're the expert in the room. And that gave me a lot of confidence. And what was that? Like, what was that feeling for me? It was acting first and foremost. It was really knowing what these characters were going through emotionally, but having a real strong sense of a few things. You have focus, you have breath, and you have grounding. Those are three bits that if you can master those things, your puppets are going to be coming to life somewhat. But if you're an actor with a real strong sense of storytelling and emotional life, adding that through puppetry, that's where we're getting excellence. That's where we're getting stuff that's really exciting. That's the difference between, people want to have puppets in their production because it sounds thrilling, and puppets do make everything better, but puppets can make things so much worse and so much harder. I mean, it can be a disaster bringing puppets into your process, because you get into it and you have an actor or a puppeteer hold something, and even for a director, you're like, oh no, how do we make this thing look alive? And I think a lot of people take that for granted, of the fun and the whimsy and the magic that provides, but how much work goes into that and how much skill goes into that.
Can you give us a little bit of a primer then on what is that skill? Because I've seen you perform a little bit, both on video and in person, and it is a different level of attention to detail that I feel like you bring into your puppetry than I've seen in other spaces. You're also working in like very small scale, what I've seen you do versus, sort of like gigantic, large scale puppets. But what is that specificity that brings puppets to life that is sort of that make or break that you're talking about, either making it wonderful or making it terrible?
Yeah. I mean, I think acting for me is it. That is acting and clear storytelling is first and foremost. If I'm working with puppeteers or even myself, if I'm working on a project and I come to a point in which the puppet or the character has to do something, and I think, okay, well, this puppet now has to push this character away, turn away and cry. Okay, well, what are those gestures? I'll take the puppet off and I'll do that with my own physical body. And I go, what are the gestures? What is it that we need to do that conveys this to an audience, that physically tells this story? And then I put the puppet on and I ask myself, what can this puppet do? Not what I want it to do, but what are the options that this puppet has in terms of movement? And how can I use those movements to match what I just did physically? So it's a real tedious, specific process of really breaking down gestures. Someone once told me that puppetry is the fine art of gesture. And that is one of my guide points for sure, is really taking that seriously and thinking about that what you're watching is a visual art form, and the gestures are what's physically expressing things to people in a way that gets the audience to get on their side or to be emotionally reactive to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that what is the difference between good puppetry and bad puppetry? And what I mean by that is, like, I had an experience as an adult where I saw a marionette show and I said, oh, never again. Mm-hmm. Oh, never again. I will never watch marionettes ever again, because they freaked me out. Like, it was not an enjoyable experience as an adult, not even as a child. But other shows that have used puppetry, I have loved 110%. Like, I've been blown away by the creativity, the detail, the whimsy of it. So what is the difference between like
good puppetry and bad puppetry?
Good puppetry and bad puppetry. I don't know that those are the right words for off-putting versus enchanting, maybe. I
mean, I think, again, coming back to acting, like, what is the difference between good acting and bad acting? I think it's about believability. Like, I don't believe these characters, and I'm not engaged in this show that I'm watching. What I'm watching, I'm not engaged in it. I don't believe the actors. I don't believe that those two people actually love each other. And we've been sitting here for 30 minutes listening to them about how much they love each other, and I do not believe it. And I think with puppetry, there's that element. But then if we're getting just like very technical, I know that there is a sense with newer puppeteers, you put a puppet on and you're like, I got to move this thing. I got to move this around as much as I can. And you just start wiggling. You start dolly wiggling, as we call it. And, dolly wiggling is not puppetry. That is just like shaking something around. And I would ask, as a puppet director, what is that conveying? What is that? What is that conveying? Nothing. If the head's flopping around the whole time, if it's a hand and mouth, a hand and rod puppet, you're not interested in that. I think it comes down to whether you believe it or not, whether you believe this thing is actually coming to life.
Interesting. Okay. So then how are you translating that sort of level of intentionality into these various projects you've been working on, where you're puppet directing, puppet wrangling, working with puppets of different scale and in different mediums, on stage versus television, for instance?
Yeah. So in terms of puppet directing and how to bring a puppet to life in any production that I'm doing, there is a very specific process in which I go through, especially with new puppeteers, which in a commercial theater market, you don't work with puppeteers. Producers on Broadway are not hiring puppeteers. They're expecting dancers and actors and singers to be also doing the puppetry. And that's a whole separate conversation there. But that is reality of what's happening there. So in order to get those people to bring these puppets to life, the process is, it's fairly simple for me in terms of you look at the puppet, you put it on, and you ask, what can this object do? If it only does three things, if it has if we say three musical notes, if it has three movements that it can do, how do you take these three movements, these three musical notes, and make them into a beautiful song? And you don't have to, it doesn't have to do 20 things. It can do three things, and it can be so captivating. So there's that. And then just being very patient with yourself. I find for myself, who's been a puppeteer for 20 years now, when I pick up a new puppet, I have to remind myself, Joshua, be patient with yourself, because it feels as though these objects want to tell you that you don't know what you're doing. And you have to just calm down, and there's layers to it. It's like learning a new dance. You have to learn the steps. Maybe if it's a dance, you're learning, okay, today we're just working on how our feet move in this. And then we're going to incorporate the arms and the hands. And then we're going to put those two things together. And then eventually we're going to think about how we're expressing ourselves and what is the emotion of that. So you can't just do everything at the same time. You have to be patient with yourself and just build your layers. So it connects to a lot of other art forms. When you really get down to it and have these conversations, there's a lot of things we can find similarities to with dance and with acting. Like, you got to learn your words to be an actor. You have to learn that first. You have to get off book. And then once you're off book, you're not thinking about your words. Then you're thinking about connecting with the other actors. You're thinking about how you're physically moving through the space. But to pick up a script and think, I'm going to be show ready right now, that's unrealistic. It's the same thing with puppetry.
Interesting. I love that there are so many parallels. So translating that to these dancers and actors that you're working with in Water for Elephants. So you became a part of this creative team. How did you become part of that show and then relate to the other members of the creative team? And what was that relationship like? And then I want to know about setting it for national tour.
Yeah. So the story of me getting Water for Elephants was I got a call from my friend Camille Labar, who was the original builder of Rosie the Elephant, which is this 10-foot tall, 11-foot long giant elephant puppet. And it needed 3 people to operate it. And she said, I need you as one of the puppeteers to help me sell this elephant to the producers, this proof of concept that what they've hired me to do is actually going to work for the show. They're not hiring puppeteers. This is not a job opportunity. I need you to sell this for me. And I was like, you got it, girl. I love you. I will go in there and I will sell this for you. So we did, me and 3 other puppeteers. Actually, at the time, there were 4 puppeteers that animated the puppet. It's now 3. And we went in there, did a great job, just really helping Camille out. And there came a point in the process in which the director, Jessica Stone, started asking the puppeteers to do certain things. She wanted to see the elephant do certain moments that she was dreaming about for the show. And she did not know how to talk to us. She didn't quite know what to say to get us to do what she wanted. And I just naturally, organically kind of stepped up and was like, oh, okay, let me help you here. And I would just talk to the puppeteers and say, okay, let's walk in, let's breathe together, starting on the front right foot. We're going to land here center stage. And then the gesture will be this. Great. Fine. Very casual. We did that for half a day. I left and I checked in with Camille later on and I said, how did that go? Did they fall in love with Rosie? And they said they fell in love with Rosie, but they fell in love with you. They said we love Rosie and we think we need whoever that guy is. What's his name? It's like Joshua Holden. They're like, we want to get in touch with him. We think we need him on the show. We don't know what it is yet. And so they brought me on for the out-of-town tryout in Atlanta. And I worked with them to train these dancers and acrobats to bring these puppets to life all at the same time while we were workshopping these puppets. I mean, they were still figuring out how these worked. And these new works, these new shows, of course, there's things that you think are going to work that don't work out. And there are designs that end up needing to be changed and adjusted. So Atlanta was really hard. Really hard. It's
Sounds
really
like
hard.
it.
Yeah. And so there's so much learning. There's so much learning from the creative team to understand how much work the puppetry was going to take. So they were among that group that said, "Oh, let's bring puppets into this." And there are moments where you think, "Oh man." And like, what's going on? Why is the elephant looking like this? And like, well, we haven't rehearsed in a week and we need some more time. Like, we don't have time. You say, okay, well, and I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to say. I'm here. If you have some extra time, I will help you. And so it was a real learning curve. And that's the joy of seeing an out of town tryout for especially a Broadway show. You go and see something and you're like, whoa, look how like beautifully messy this is. Or sections that are so great. And the sections you're like, oh, that's gotta change.
Yeah.
And so you get to Broadway, and we did. And we learned a lot from the out of town to Broadway, and even on Broadway, there's still some catch up, and it was a big show. It was like a $25 million
it's a big show.
And so Broadway, we got that done, but the tour, the first thing they were like, Joshua, you got a week of puppetry training. And I was like, oh my God. So I spent a whole week like really layering out how to teach the puppetry. And I had 2 productions under my belt at this point with this show. And so I really knew at that point, we weren't discovering, okay, what can this moment be? We're now, these are the moments, this is the blocking, we're good. So I was really able to lay a foundation and a process in which to really bring these puppets to life. And I'm very happy with the way it turned out. With what they wanted the puppets to do, I really helped them achieve that in a way that I feel really proud of.
What do you think puppetry brings to that show that couldn't be achieved in any other way?
Well, Water for Elephants is about this circus, and there's a whole menagerie of animals, and there's this one of the central characters is an elephant, and the show is a memory play, and so the puppets are designed and used in a way that feel like fragments of somebody's memory. So the horse, Silver Star, this horse is just a horse head and a mane, and that's it. And it really gives this sense that visually it kind of just dissipates when you're looking at it on stage, and it gives the audience an opportunity to kind of fill in the blanks with what they're envisioning this horse to look like. And so that really leads and lends itself to tell this story that it is a memory play. And it also just feels really handcrafted and imaginative in a world where that feels like it's being taken away from us in so many ways. And so I think it really adds to the artistic experience that people will get with Water for Elephants. You have world-class acrobats doing incredible feats, and all these different mediums, and the puppetry is really impressive and very artistically expressive. And I like that a lot with the production.
So let's talk about a different type of world building, Sesame Street. That is a world unto itself, right? In so many different ways. I'm curious about the difference of plunking into a world that is already established and a machine that has been going for 30, 40 years at that point of Sesame Street as a pretty young person versus getting to build something from scratch, whether that's on your own with your own show or Water for Elephants. What's the difference between those experiences and maybe the good, bad, and ugly of sort of like being in an established property versus creating something from scratch?
Oh my God, Sesame Street. So my first time on set at Sesame Street as a puppet wrangler was for the 50th anniversary TV special.
What?
And yeah, Whoopi Goldberg was on there, Patti LaBelle, Isak Perlman. All of the original human characters were on that day.
Wow.
They all were sitting on the steps of 123 Sesame Street, and we had every puppet from my childhood. Every puppet was pulled out of storage and dressed and styled and was on set, and it was It was amazing. And season 50 was when I started. And so as a puppet wrangler, my job is to style the puppets, to make sure that they are ready for every shot. It's to dress the puppets and to rig the puppets with all their props.
Okay. So when you say style and dress, what exactly does that mean?
So it means, for instance, if we have a script where Elmo is having a dress up day and he wants to be, he's going to dress as a firefighter, an astronaut, and a doctor. Well, then I pull the 4 Elmos that we have at the Jim Henson Company. Before the shoot even begins, I have 1 naked Elmo and I pre-dress 3 of them. Okay. I make sure I dress them. And so when you dress them, like, okay, great. Yeah, you just throw some clothes on it. No, there is now 56 years of institutional knowledge as to how to take care of these puppets and how to dress them and you're stitching all around the collar to make sure that the costume doesn't move. There are different techniques of pinning them, of, getting a hat, throwing a hat onto Elmo to make it not fall off is a very long process. A
human can't even wear a hat without it falling off. I can't imagine Elmo.
You're stitching that all around. Like it's a lot of like hand stitching and then so when you're on set, so maybe there's 4 looks that he does when Elmo's done with his firefighter look. And then we move on to another one that we've had pre-dressed. That firefighter, I may have to take that costume off and put another costume on while I'm on set and while I'm watching the monitors to make sure that I'm not seeing puppeteers popping up into frame, or that I can see any of the pins or anything doesn't look right style-wise.
Okay.
And it also includes getting Big Bird on and off Matt Vogel, the puppeteer, and that is like really delicate, specific process because it's a pretty big puppet that you're pulling off of a stand and getting it safely onto this puppeteer, making sure that they're comfortable and safe, and then they do their thing with their arm up in the air. And if that shot goes on for a while, as soon as it's done, you want to get that off and then right onto Big Bird's stand, while make sure that the 7,000 feathers that make up Big Bird are all in place and are looking nice. And there's like a real care and protection that you take for these characters. And I so often have these moments of being like, oh my God, I'm taking care of the Sesame Street characters. Yeah, it's so amazing.
That's so amazing.
It's everything you want it to be and more. I'm here to tell the tale that being on Sesame Street is the best. It's the best. You have like these big celebrities coming in that are in our house. They are humbled, and it's like, yeah, you're Whoopi Goldberg, but I'm holding Bert and Ernie right now, and you're really into that. And it's like, it's a sense of pride, and we all love these characters. We all have an emotional experience with them, and to have the privilege of being responsible for them while on set or on a shoot is like, oh my God, it's the best. Wow. It's the best.
It does seem like it's the best. So you were styling, so you're dressing, styling, and caring for the puppets. Did you ever get to perform as any of them, or you were on the artistic side?
Okay. Yeah, not on Sesame Street. No.
Okay.
No.
Interesting.
But I build props. I built a lot of props for the show, which is really also really fun, and really a whole process in there, and a lot of knowledge of how to do that.
Sure. How do you build a prop and then attach it? This is just personal curiosity. Attach it to a hand of a puppet that's not going to close around it and hold it itself.
Yeah. So if Elmo's going to be holding a hammer, then the hammer, if you want the puppeteers to not hate you forever, and you want to make sure that they're being taken care of, which I do, I have a real interest in making sure we're taking care of them and that they don't hate us. You build it out of something really light, like light foam, or something that looks very similar to what looks exactly like the real thing, but you're making this you're really starting to be creative with materials and making them light. And then you have 2 options. So if Elmo has to hold a hammer, I can either tape it into his hand with there's toupee tape is what we use. It's called Topstick. And so you put Topstick on Elmo's hand and you put the object in the hand, and you close that up. And so he can hold it in his hand there. But if Elmo wants to hold it in his hand and then put it down, I can also rod it. So I can put a rod on the object and tape that in a way, or attach that in a way you can physically put it in there. So you often have two. If Elmo has a hammer on set, we usually would have two of the identical props, one that you can tape in and one that you can rod. So if on the fly, the puppeteer really has that call and says, I want this rodded, then we have that available for him. Or there's a whole box of a whole chest of tools and materials that we have to rig on the fly too.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Wow. It's a great challenge.
Yeah, it is a great challenge. So how did that lend itself into you creating your own show, the Joshua Show, and now the Jolly Jamboree, which is one of your exciting new projects? Those skills, that learning, the creativity that comes out of dressing the puppets, creating these props, because you created a whole cast of characters for your own show. And then you wrote a script and music and all of these different things. So how did those skills sort of translate in? And how did you said you made this show for a puppetry slam? I don't even know what a puppetry slam is. So how did that flow from how does that knowledge flow from one into the next of creating your own thing? Yeah.
So the Joshua Show, which was my first piece I ever made, that was very DIY. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't working for the Henson Company at that point. I was just performing for other people. I made my very first puppets for the Joshua Show, for this, like I said, this puppet slam, which is a 10-minute an evening of short pieces, 5 to 10 minute pieces. And I was using hot glue for everything. And I was using the few materials that I knew, and I could hand stitch. I'm pretty artistic naturally. That just all organically came to be. And I just watched YouTube videos of things. If I'd had questions about what I wanted to do, I would just kind of make it up and wing it. And the Joshua Show just came to be and was this very scrappy DIY piece that ended up having a beautiful long 10-year run, and 2 different full-length shows were within the Joshua Show. And so working for the Jim Henson Company, that happened during my Joshua Show time. So they would let me leave for periods of time to go on tour, and I'd come back. And it wasn't until things started really aging and falling apart with the Joshua Show, because that does mean just you're using these materials, these puppets that are traveling on planes and trains and buses and cars for 10 years. They're like, oh, I'm going to go fix this. And I would go to fix it and be like, Joshua, why are you using this? And I'm like, oh, I had no idea. And here at the Henson Company, wow, don't get me started talking about foam, but I'm like, why aren't you using Scott foam on this? Because you didn't know what Scott foam was. Right. And so there came a point, especially for the Joshua Show, where I was like, what are we doing? Are we rebuilding this old show now, or we need to do something new? Because I can't just keep rebuilding all this stuff. I can't do that. So what I learned at the Henson Company, my gosh, that has really informed the way I build my puppets now. And so for the Joyfully Jolly Jamboree, starting from scratch, I have so many more techniques that I'm pulling from, build wise and design wise, that I did not know with the Joshua Show. Mm-hmm. So that feels like I can see direct inspiration there for sure.
So being a touring artist, let's talk about that for just a moment. It's a different life. So you have a creative practice in New York City, right? So that's where your home base is. You're in New York. When I saw you in January at APAP, you were telling me about having to get all your puppetry stuff in a cab to go uptown, and you were working on a show. And I was just like, how do you live as an artist trying to truck all your stuff around New York City? And then how do you truck all your stuff across the country for your show? So I'm interested how your creative practice is different in your home base versus being on the road and being a touring artist. And what are some of the nuggets of wisdom that you would impart to other artists who are considering the same sort of life?
That's a great question. It's so difficult to create new work in New York City. Everything is exponentially harder. I don't have a car. I live in an apartment with a small amount of space. So where do you store all this stuff? So I have to be very economical with all of that, how I do all that. With touring, I try to dream big, but not too big. I try to dream within 64 linear inches, which is what you need to get something on a plane without getting charged more for it. So 64 linear inches is what I try to think about. If I can pack things down into suitcases or boxes that can fit there and under 50 pounds, then you get a normal charge on a plane. So the Joshua Show traveled across the country for 10 years in 5 bags on planes. Larger bags, golf bags are amazing, as are ski bags. Those are stuff you can put your soft goods in there. There's lots of things you can put in there, and getting a nice little at home weighing scale. You can a bag scale. I love using those. And Southwest Airlines used to be the unofficial sponsor of the Joshua Show because it was 2 free bags per person, and there were 3 of us. So I was like, all right, we didn't have to pay for bags for the whole time, unless we went another airline, and that would eat into my budget. But for a while, I was like, this is such a good touring hack, Southwest, but they're charging for bags now. So
no, Southwest.
No longer an official sponsor of Joshua Holden's work. But yeah, I think just really thinking about how you're going to travel this stuff, and if there is shipping, which that's what I'm starting to consider for the Joyfully Jolly Jamboree, because I really do want this to scale between 500 and 1,000 seat houses, and so that includes just filling the stage out more. So if you're going to hang things, can you make something beautiful that's fabric or light or can be compact, but also when you show up to the venue isn't going to be a wrinkly mess and people are like, why, what is this looks like it came out of a bag. So I think being really, really smart with thinking about that stuff as you're building your shows, really thinking about how you're going to be traveling this from place to place and how much that's going to cost.
Interesting. Yeah, please don't make your artist liaison steam an entire backdrop. Please don't make us do that.
or yourself. I mean, I was doing it for so long. I was like, gosh, I'm not using curtains anymore. These curtains are I spent 45 minutes when I show up at the venue steaming for years.
Yeah. So a part of that booking process is attending conferences and showcasing as an artist. So you showcased your new show, the Joyfully Jolly Jamboree at APAP in January 2026, and hands down best artist showcase I've ever seen in my career. And let me tell you why, Joshua.
Yeah, I was going to say, why? What is that? What are the qualities that you liked about it?
So for those that don't attend the Youth and Family Showcase at APAP, it is in a quarter of a hotel ballroom. It is the tiniest room you've ever seen. We pack 250 people and totally break fire code. There's no way that many people should be in the seating area. You're on a 12 by 12 stage with the harshest lights you've ever seen and a minimally useful sound system. So this is the setting. Let me set the stage here. You and who is the musician that plays with you, that performs with you?
His name is Jeb Colwell.
Okay. So you and Jeb came out on stage in the most poised manner I've ever seen. From start to finish, your whole 12 minutes was completely on point. It was polished. It was perfectly timed. You knew exactly who your audience was. You knew how to land your jokes, how to wait for the applause, to wait for the laughter, how to play to the audience. So you knew that this was an audience of presenters. This isn't kids and families, right? So I'm assuming you tweaked it a little bit, but you knew exactly who was in the audience and you played to them so they would understand the depth and breadth and the kind of the nostalgia of the show that you wanted us to understand. And Danielle and I were sitting in I think the 3rd row, 4th row with our breakfast sandwiches, trying to quietly eat during the showcases because it's such a busy day. And we were just mesmerized by that because it was so well rehearsed. I've never seen an artist hit it so far out of the park. Thank you. Can you tell us just how did you prep for that? And what is your philosophy behind showcasing and preparing for showcases at these conferences?
Well, thank you for that. That was really nice to hear. That's very affirming.
You're very welcome.
So the Joyfully Jolly Jamboree Showcase is based on my Joshua Show showcase. And my Joshua Show showcase, I learned also was people were just beside themselves with what I did. And I had never showcased before that. And what it is I wrote a showcase piece. It was a separate piece. I wrote a 12-minute showcase, and really thinking about the audience and making it entertaining. So you're pitching to all these presenters. You have this opportunity. You have the attention of all these people. Now that I have your attention, what do I have to say? And really making sure that you're using those 12 minutes to your advantage. And I think my shows do have a lot of a direct address, so it lends itself to breaking the fourth wall and connecting with the audience in a way. But I think if you have a more narrative piece, I think there's nothing wrong with coming out and introducing that and being a little more connected with the audience and getting people to think, oh, we're all here together. They're paying attention to me. And I think really thinking about the showcase, what do you want them to see? This is really, they're not going to book you from your showcase. This is what they're going to go, oh, I'm going to go talk to your agent, or I'm going to get more information. You want them to then have interest in getting the full video or learning more about the production. So I think just really writing a showcase piece, that this is a separate piece, that you are a separate asset that you put together, that you polish and you make shine, because this thing is really, you have to. You just spent $1,000 to be there. You just spent, I mean, that's the reality of it. You there's no guarantees. You spent all this money, so you might as well, you must make it, you must use it to your full advantage. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Joshua, we have a tradition here on the podcast you may or may not be aware of. Brian, one of my fellow hosts, has a time machine, and sometimes we like to take our guests in the time machine back to a point at the start of their career. So I would like to take us back to actually when you started with the national tour of Avenue Q. We didn't really talk about it, but I love that show. It was a real game changer on Broadway, and you're on the national tour. So I'd love to take you back to when you got on that national tour. You're roaming the country with the company. What do you know now that you wish you had known then?
I think I would worry a little bit less. I was really worried on that tour. I was really trying to prove myself. I was an understudy, so I understudied all the male characters in the show, and it was at the time that Hairspray had just closed on Broadway, and Harvey Fierstein was touting that he had never taken a performance off, and that come rain or come shine, no matter how ill you were, you got on that stage. And that was the culture at the time. And I found that really hard on tour. And so there was a lot of times where I was sitting on the sidelines, just wanting to be put in, watching these actors get on stage with the flu and thinking, what are we doing? And so I wished that I could have just chilled out a little bit more, I think, and just, I think just be a little more kind to myself. That was a long time ago. And there was a lot of unknowns too. I had just started puppetry, and I think there was a part of me trying to prove myself. I think I was a little bit lost too of not really knowing who I was an artist at that time. I had no artistic voice of my own in terms of creating anything. And so I was gearing up to get into the Broadway machine. I was thinking, okay, I'm in, I got my foot in the door, and now I'm going to be on Broadway. This narrow focus that this is a step towards this other thing. And I just had no sense that my life was going to be as artistically grounded in a way that it is now. And I would be a leader in my community, in my field, in a way that feels really holistic and really something that I'm proud of. And so, I think I wish that I could sit myself down and just say, expand your horizons a little bit. This narrow focus of being on Broadway in this commercial market, it's not it, babe. There's so much more to it. And what you think Broadway is, it's not that. There's so much more out there. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Joshua, that's a perfect place to end our conversation today. Thank you so much for joining me here. I have one more question.
Okay.
Maybe the hardest question of the entire interview.
What is it?
Your favorite Sesame Street character?
I get asked this all the time.
I'm sure you do.
Grover. Grover.
I love Grover too.
Yeah, he fails at everything, but just gets back up and is like, I'm gonna try again. This is all good. It's all good. I can keep going. And I could sit on set and watch him all day long. He's just the best. I love Grover.
I love it. So,
Yeah.
Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you. Thank you for taking the
Likewise,
time.
Katie.
Oh, this has been great. So thank you so much
you.
for joining me here on There's No Business Like.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
All right. Well, Katie, this was a delightfully fun listen for me. I've been a Joshua Holden fan for quite some time. And the showcase that you referenced that you and I watched together was not the first showcase that I ever saw Joshua perform in. I had seen him a few years back, and he's performed at my venue once or twice. And the Alden is actually going to premiere the Joyfully Jolly Jamboree coming up in December of this year. And so I'm super excited about it. But the very first time I saw Joshua do a showcase was at the APAP Youth and Family Showcase. And he did his showcase performance. I was delighted, as I have referenced, and went almost directly to Tara Bailey's booth and said, I need more information. I need to know about this. Like, can he come to Virginia? And it's and at the time, like for that show, the Joshua show, the thing that I adored about it was the depth of emotional range that him, but especially his puppets get, and like the amount of like facial expression on a puppet whose face doesn't, the only thing that moves is his mouth, like the rest of it is still, he gets and can convey in a way to like young children. It had to be on the stage. Like I had to.
Yeah.
I had no choice.
And I was not familiar with Joshua Holden before this, Katie. And so I appreciate learning about new people as always, but I had to Google him. So something our listeners who don't know him also may not realize is he has a fantastic handlebar mustache, just like our host, Kevin. And so I automatically like him already. But no, it's just really cool to learn about him. And like Danielle was saying, I think the emotion that comes from a puppet is really what I connect with too. And I think that skill that you learn is to be able to do that with something with your hand to make it look, convey those deep emotions. I mean, it's just an incredible art, and I appreciate it.
I have a little bit of a funny story too about that first show, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So, we announced, I was like a very new presenter at the time. And I think this happened while I was on maternity leave. Like the show happened while I was on maternity leave. But leading up to it, we had gotten a call from somebody that was local and explained to me that they wanted to purchase a large group of tickets for the show, which great. We love a group sale. But like they didn't want to sit too close because they didn't want to like block any kids. And he explained that it would be like a group of like 25 to 30 adults, which like totally fine. Right. But it's like not what you're expecting for a show that you're marketing to like young children and their families. And we later found out that the date that we booked was the same day as like a large regional puppet maker and performer gathering in this area. And they were all so inspired and in awe of his work that they decided to cancel their meeting/convention to come to the Alden to see him perform. They loved him so much.
That's
and
amazing.
Like knew and like very much like is like famous, famous in your like niche field, I think is a very interesting, I don't know, famous might feel like a little exaggeratory, like, but I think that title fits. Like famous in your category, I think is amazing.
Yeah. Well, I just think that speaks directly to Joshua's reputation and the career that he has built over 20 years. Like, it was really interesting for me in our conversation just to learn about sort of the depth of his experience going all the way back to college and his route from being an actor who does puppetry to really making a full transition to that identity as a puppeteer. And then all of the different aspects of puppetry, you know, between the wrangling and the directing and the design and the building, creating his own shows, working for other companies, working on Broadway. The breadth of what he has done is so impressive. And so I think that story really speaks to sort of how much of a leader he is in the field and what example he sets for others that want to pursue puppetry as well.
Yeah, it's an incredible resume. And again, I didn't really know much about him before your conversation. So my reference is always Jim Henson when it comes to this sort of thing. And I was really big. I loved, if you didn't see the documentary that Ron Howard did about 2 years ago on Jim Henson, I kept, as I was listening to you and Joshua talk, I kept thinking and picturing things that were happening, like how it kind of coordinates with some of what happened with Jim Henson's life. And that, I don't know, I guess I'm a visual learner. So seeing that documentary helped me inform some of the things that you guys were talking about, which was cool. And his resume is just incredible. Like you said, I mean, from Avenue Q up to the Muppets and the, you know, everything in between.
I think too, I've always just sort of nodded along when people said they were a puppet director or a puppet wrangler, and never wanted to ask the question of what does that mean? Because
Wrangler, especially, yes.
Yeah, right. Because I know what child wrangler does, right? And the main job of child wrangler is like movement and keeping them in the right place, right? And like puppets, unless they're haunted, don't seem to have that problem, right? So, I really appreciate, Katie, you having him talk a little bit more about what those roles entailed, and I'm listening to him describe it, and to me, it almost sounded like being the stage manager for a puppet.
Yeah,
and
totally.
making sure that making sure that puppet has what it needs, and putting Elmo in his astronaut costume. I mean, give me a break. Oh my gosh. And I was even thinking about he was talking about going from shot to shot. And one of my favorite things about Elmo is that when he gets upset or he does something, that his fur gets all a little bit messed up, because it just really adds to his frustration. And then so thinking about them being oh no, we need to make sure we mess up his hair a little bit, just is heartwarming. I love it. I love everything about it.
Yeah. No, I didn't know anything about that. And so I was just personally curious to learn more about that. So I appreciated the detail that Joshua went in about that. I learned a ton, and I love getting this sort of behind the scenes look into this world, because I don't know that we as presenters in particular know that much about what it takes to bring puppets to the stage. And I have seen a lot more puppetry in the last few years between the Bluey show. We've had these big dragon shows in locally. And then even we just had Wildcrats in, and though those aren't puppets, they were big costumes that functioned in sort of a puppetry way that the Krat brothers were using. So I've just seen a lot more of it, and we seem to be seeing more and more of it on stages. So I really appreciate the behind the scenes sort of look at that. Another thing that really struck me when he was talking about working on Water for Elephants on Broadway was the moment he talked about when the Broadway director was trying to explain what she wanted, right? And Joshua was able to step in and sort of speak the vocabulary and help that process along. And it turned into this opportunity. It struck me, and then sort of I thought paralleled Joshua's story really nicely. She's a Broadway director. She's supposed to be leading this whole enterprise, but she didn't know what she was doing in that moment, right? And she had to rely on somebody else to help translate that vision. So I just thought it was such a great moment for me to remember, and for us and our colleagues to remember that we're all part of a team. We don't have to be the experts in everything. It's okay to rely on other people. And it's also okay to step into a void and use your expertise to help the team along. I think when we're so caught up in our day-to-day stuff and the stress of what we do, we feel like we've got to have the answers to everything. And I just thought that was a really interesting moment to sort of capture during our conversation. And I wanted to point that out because I know I'm always stressing about like, I don't know this, I don't know that. How will I ever, learn this thing? Well, she didn't know it. And she's a freaking director on Broadway. So I don't know. I just thought that was a really interesting moment. And Joshua totally was able to use his expertise to help solve that problem. And it turned into this beautiful piece of work.
And I think that's the special part about the subset of our industry that comes from a theater background, because we're always kind of given, this is what you have to work with. This is the space you're in. This is whatever. And it's always not like amazing and set before you, like finished and done. You always have to create something out of nothing, whatever resources you have. And that's a special gift I think you learn in theater as you go along, and you start seeing the world in a different way than some of our colleagues in other areas where it's like, oh, well, we need this one special thing. It's like, well, can't we don't have that. Can we find another way? What's the solution? And I think theater people just find a solution when they have to.
But I also think he started to touch on a problem of people in other expertise being expected to just be able to learn to handle a puppet and to not necessarily schedule in time to get training, to just like a real blind spot on people's sort of thought on like, well, yeah, just give the actor a puppet or give the dancer a puppet and I'm sure it'll be fine. And, the Peter Pan show that he was referencing, it sounds like that dog character was fine, right? It was what everybody they said, oh yeah, cool, dog. But then like when somebody with that skill set comes in and handles it, like you get a whole nother experience and breadth. And like, is it a training need that we have? Is it a staffing need that like we really need to pay more attention to? And like, it's a whole career trajectory that I had never considered. I could see how he could work in that kind of a field for, a long, long time if you got sort of the networked in the right way. And like how many more sort of puppet specialists we really need to have across the field as more shows are incorporating large scale puppets, puppet moments, like puppets that are an extension of something else. It's an interesting problem to learn about.
I'm talking about that dog situation. It goes from being a cool prop to being a character. And that's the difference between someone with training will make it a character, and you can see it and feel it in their own unique individual, not just an extension of something, but they're their own thing.
And it starts from picking flies at a Cookie Monster.
So did anyone have any thoughts on what we talked about with showcases and like artist showcases? We kind of got it from Joshua's artist perspective, but from a presenter perspective, what do you want to see out of a showcase, or how do you know as a presenter, like this artist is prepared or this artist is not prepared?
I haven't thought about it before, but like, I think that showcase that Joshua does is like the gold standard of a showcase for me. Like it was probably within the first 50 I saw as a presenter. And kind of what he described as writing it as its own separate thing and mixing in sort of like the big highlights that you want to know, and coming in and talking about it and breaking the fourth wall so that I know what I'm looking at. I think that there's this thought that like you need to like start from a place and do 12 minutes and hopefully that encompassed the show. But like I always, to me, and I think that this extends to my colleagues, is that like I can fill in the blanks. It's like I want to see the plot points, right? Like I want to know if there's something that's like a plot point that I'm not expecting to come up or a way that it's going to turn. Like I want to know the full experience of it rather than just here's one beautiful section.
Yeah, and I love when they tell you what's missing, what's not there that we don't see. Yeah, I agree with Danielle. I like that experience. Now, I never saw Joshua do a showcase, so I can't speak directly to that. But in general, as a presenter, what I'm always looking for is, one, do they show that they have the skill or the level of quote unquote quality, which I hate that word we've talked about before, but I don't, for lack of a better word, to make sure that they're skilled at what they're doing. But then I also, as I'm watching it, I'm like thinking about my audience do I see my audience there? Do I see my audience engaging with this and liking it? And from what I know about my audience, having a relationship with them, bringing them there and having them tell me what they want to see or what they need will they get something from this? And that's where I begin. But yeah, I need to know all the context, because you don't have enough in 12 minutes to give me everything. So just, show me enough of the show so I know you're good, but then tell me about what you don't have time for.
And I think what impressed me the most about that moment, and I'm always looking for in a showcase, is did the artist take the time to prepare for this moment? Because to Joshua's point, you are spending so much money to be there. Did you take the time and care to prepare for this? And of course, there's always exceptions to the rule. Like we know a couple of artists that were thrown into their showcases last minute, had a last minute opportunity. So they do the best that they can. But for the most part, I'm always looking for, did they take the care? Did they write the script out? Did they memorize it for when they're going to talk to the audience? Or are they just off the cuff? Is there a flow to it?
I like off the cuff. I think that's a personal preference thing.
If it's delivered well, but if you can tell that someone is nervous and they're stumbling and there's not a flow and it's not clear what they're trying to communicate, it's like, if you can't prepare for this moment, right, when you know what to expect.
I will say I've also not booked a show completely off of this, but was like interested in a specific artist because I saw a showcase that went wrong, that like the technical elements didn't work and like that. And I think this was an artist too who had also prepared the showcase and had a flow of what was going to happen and wasn't able to do a lot of the stuff that needed that technical thing. So it was a magician. So switched over to something he had that was like smaller, and like watching him give time to the technician to like solve the problem and like be communicative, but not in a way that was like aggressive or pushy, but was just like talking to another human who like is very capable of having like a technical thing go wrong, like we all are. And then just being like, you know what, we'll figure it out for the next one. I'm going to do this now. And just like change course, deliver still something incredible. And, like you want to see the polished showcase, right? Like you want to see what the best thing they put forward. But I think the second best thing is really being able to see like, so what happens if it doesn't, if it doesn't work, or like, I don't want our staff to be getting like berated, right? If something doesn't go right, and having that comfort, not that I'm going to necessarily always book off of something like that, but it gives you an idea of what that person's going to be like to work with.
Totally
so many
agree.
Things are out of our control. And that's the thing that I've also seen. It's worked in the negative and I won't name names, but where I've seen, because showcases they're giant, they're a behemoth, like tremendous technical pressure on that crew and everything. And so, it's hard for them to go perfectly if they ever go perfectly. And I've seen artists get up there and be so frustrated and constantly berate the tech crew or say something negative like throughout their showcase instead of being professional. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, I don't want to work with them because exactly like you said, I don't want to bring that energy into my theater. Like I want someone, I can look past mistakes or technical things not working properly and can, again, we're all presenters. Once you're in this industry long enough, you can see what it's supposed to be. You can see through all of that. And we have the imaginations to be able to do that. And so showing your true character like that is important, not to ever let that frustration show. You need to be a professional.
Yeah, I saw that exact thing happen to an artist just this past booking season, Brian, and I felt really bad, but also like their behavior towards the technicians was really off-putting. So based on that, like, I'd have to really think twice if I ever wanted to book that show into my venue, because I think the content is incredible, but it wasn't their best night. We'll put it that way.
Right. And like our stuff can also fail and go wrong. Yeah. Even though it's been tested, even though, we did.
We're live theater. Anything can happen.
Like it's, it's just as, in a hotel ballroom, it's obviously hard to set up, but even in a place where you have as much control as you can in your own space, we all still know we have very little control.
And the technicians who set up all of that and prepare all that, they are also doing the absolute best that they can. Yeah. It's just doing this work in a tiny hotel ballroom is just the least conducive to this sort of thing. So we give lots of kudos all around to those individuals that make this happen at all, period. But knowing that all those things could happen, it's how do you prepare for it and how do you make sure that you can give the best representation of your work, even if something does happen. And I think Joshua's example of being really prepared and having rehearsed, a lot and being so comfortable with the material that if something goes wrong, you can just sort of power through, is a great one for other artists to look at. All right, friends, last question before we go. Just like I asked Joshua, who's your favorite Sesame Street character?
Geez, Katie, saving the hard question for the last.
I know.
This one is like when you ask me what's my favorite food, because there's so many, but I am able to narrow it down to just two. Three. So I have to lean on Sesame Street a lot, even though I was a big Muppet fan. And I love Ernie. I love his humor and I love his interactions with Bert. But I also love Cookie Monster, not when he's like the ravenous, crazy cookie eating monster, but when he has those conversations with a kid sitting next to him and how much heart is shown through a cookie monster. It's like, that is incredible. And it's so touching when that happens. But my absolute favorite has to be Kermit. And that's because I relate to him. I always have, even before I knew what this job was, I've always wanted to do what Kermit does. And here I am doing that in real life as my profession. And I love that he was also the Muppet that was in both the Muppets and on Sesame Street. So shout out. Kermit has to be my favorite.
On TV, my favorite is Elmo, just because Elmo's the encapsulation of pure curiosity, and watching Elmo get into a fight with Rocco is gold. I love Elmo's expression, like I talked about a little bit earlier, but in the books, my favorite is there's a terrible monster at the end of this book, and it's just Grover getting increasingly angry that you're turning the pages and he's building a wall, you're not going to get through this. Mm-hmm. And then at the end he's got this just goober look on his face and he's like, the monster at the end of the book is me. And I cannot get enough of it. I love it so much. But also justice for Miss Piggy to be an O'Mary. I need to see that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Would that be maybe the greatest moment on Broadway? Maybe. I
think it could be film, personally.
Yeah. I think that would be incredible. I would see
that in theater any time of the year.
I'm here for it. All right, friends. I think that is...
Whoa. What's your favorite?
Yeah, what about yours, Katie?
My favorite, I personally I love the friendship pairs. So I love Big Bird and Snuffleupagus, and I love Bert and Ernie, because they both have different friendship dynamics, but at the end of the day, they're there for each other, and they just form this beautiful friendship community amongst all the Sesame Street characters. But I love seeing great demonstrations of friendship on screen for our kiddos and teaching them how to love and support their friends, even when it's hard to do so. So I think those would be I also can't pick just one. My two favorite Sesame Street pairs of friends.
It's impossible to just pick one.
I know.
Because then you also remember that the count exists. And come on. Also I was terrified of the count as a child, but as an adult,
Well, you mentioned Grover. I loved him too. Big Bird. Did you ever see Follow That Bird? That was a great movie too. That had so much heart.
No, the Sesame Street Christmas one where they go ice skating. Yes, that's my favorite of all time.
There's so much.
I know. It's a reason why it's a classic. So
yeah.
All right, friends. I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much, Joshua Holden, for joining us today here on the show. It was such a pleasure to have you. Thanks, Brian and Danielle, for joining me to chat about my conversation with Joshua. And we will see you next time here on There's No Business Like.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Brian Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating.
Oh, wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends.
He and I had a thoroughly delightful conversation about his career as a puppet. Not his career as a puppet.
I thought of the song "Am I a Man or a Muppet?"
Yes.
Or a Muppet of a Man.
That comes on the Disney radio, Sirius XM Disney radio all the time. And at first Leo was like, what is this? And I was like, it's the Muppets, Jason Segel and the Muppets. And so now he has an appreciation, but that song gets stuck in my head all the time.
It's a good song.
It is a good song.